formalized economy behind Bolivia, with small to medium enterprises contributing over 60% to the country's GDP, majority of those being women. Now, we are in Epworth, one of the high-density suburbs of Zimbabwe's capital, Harare, where it is that this Epworth Safe Market, an initiative of the United Nations Women in partnership with the EU, as well as the government of Zimbabwe's Ministry of Women, Community, Small to Medium Enterprises, has brought about transformation to the lives of many in this very community.
Launched in 2021, the Epworth Safe Market has quietly transformed the lives of women vendors and the wider Epworth community of over 200,000 people. Designed under the Safe Market model, the facility offers 96 secure, well-lit features that make a powerful difference.
Aiwa raramo iri kuendeka zvakanaka nekuti taakukwanisa kuzvishandirawo. Vana baba vaendawo kwavo isiri pano tichitengesawo, ndikawanawo kamari kangu pamwe hamuna soti ndotengawo soti, ndikawanawo keschool fees pamwe tirogona kuti baba wane $20 ndine $20 ndakutoisawo yakwana $40 yeschool fees yemwana.
Before the Safe Market, many women operated from open economic hub, reducing risks while strengthening livelihoods.
Titone matestimony ezvakaitika kumashure. Vamwe vedu ndoti tine madisabled muno. Madisabled akauya tiri patatengesera parodi. Motikari dzaingobuda dzotitsika. Tine mumwe wedu akarohwa nemotikari achitengesera papa parodi. Saka toda kuvatenda kuti vakativakira market yakanaka. Iye zvino hatina motikari dzichatitsika. Hatina.
It offers a health, psychosocial, legal, and safety services for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, all under one roof and centered on dignity and confidentiality. On site is a dressmaking facility that provides skills training and empowerment to young women who have been affected by teenage pregnancy, equipping them with practical tailoring skills to rebuild their confidence.
Yes, mothers, mpazimbo zabantu. Effect chane 1 year tichite zvekusona panapa, tichidzidzira kusona, and now takutosona, takutogona effect.
Meanwhile, the children of traders and dressmaking students receive on-site preschool and primary education, allowing the women to remain economically productive.
Manzi kusvika pa6 years ndichivadzidzisa kutaura, kuimba nekuita marhymes echirungu nekutamba bhora, kumhanya tiri pamagrounds tichitamba swings.
The Epworth Safe Market and One-Stop Center are supported under the EU-UN Spotlight Initiative, implemented in partnership with the government of Zimbabwe and local authorities to eliminate violence against women and girls and provide medical assistance where necessary.
As you can see, there is this.
Tinenge tisina mari, asi zimbozi abantu yakati aiwa kama madzimai. Zvamukutengesa tiri pamwe chete taumba ukama hwakanaka. Kana tinge tichitarwara tine tichirapwa pano, tine free consultation, hatina mari yetinobhadhara, tinoiswa free consultation kuna doctor. Tine vanhu tunoshanda navo vanorwara neshuga, vanorwara neBP, vanotounzirwa specialist doctor weBP anovaongorora every Monday yega yega.
The local leadership says the Safe Market has become more than infrastructure. It is a community institution.
Takamira kuti tarisere kuenda kuchikoro. Number 3 ndopari kuchengeta nerera chirikadzi dzedu zvakanyanya.
Since 2019, the Spotlight Initiative has reached millions across Africa, strengthening prevention, response, and survivor support systems in the fight against gender-based violence. Years after its launch, the Epworth Safe Market stands as living proof that when women are safe, communities do more than survive, they thrive. Here, empowerment is not a slogan, it is lived every single day. This is one of UN Women's transformative projects in Zimbabwe, a country with approximately 9 at the center of national development. Against this backdrop, I held a wide-ranging conversation with the United Nations Assistant Secretary General and Deputy Executive Director of UN Women, Dr. Nyaradzai Kumbonjanda, who was on a high-level mission to Zimbabwe aimed at strengthening partnerships for gender equality and the economic emancipation of women across Africa. Dr. Kumbonjanda, thank you for speaking to ZTN Prime. You have been on a high-level visit to Zimbabwe, and of course you have met the acting president of Zimbabwe, of course, President Kembo Mohadi. Would you like to speak to us about the significance of that visit, as well as some of the engagements that you've had with some of the ministers that we've got in Zimbabwe?
Thank you so much. It has been such an honor to be here in Zimbabwe, and thank you to ZTN for this opportunity. I have been working out of Zimbabwe and focusing on a number of key objectives together with the Deputy Regional Director for UN Women, Mr. Adama Musa, who has been part of my mission in Zimbabwe. The meeting with the acting president, His Excellency Kembo Mohadi, was so critical as part of, as a core recognition of UN Women and of this work together that we do as a country. The objectives of being here for this week was first to learn from the country. What is the progress that the country has made? What are the challenges the country is facing? And also for us to support the UN Women and the United Nations work in Zimbabwe in how they are supporting the country, how we are supporting the country as the United Nations to really empower all women and girls, to address the issues of the rights of women and girls. And it's very important to look at the issues of equality of opportunities, gender equality, and we have been able to meet with the range of ministries, including the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, who leads the multilateral engagements in the country. With the Minister of Women Affairs, I also appreciated the opportunity to interact with the Deputy Chief Justice of the country, with the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Justice and others, as well as the Chapter 12 institutions, the Gender Commission, the Human Rights Commission, and the women's movement and the women's organizations, with a wide range of interactions, including meeting with civil society organizations, being in Epworth, and also our team, and we're able to be in Bulawayo as well to interact with a range of stakeholders, especially young people there as well. So it has been a full experience, including with the United Nations. Of course, we are the United Nations, so meeting with the UN, as well as with the development partners, with the donors in this country, and with the private sector. The meeting with Econet Wireless was very important as well.
Right. What's been the offshoot of those conversations and engagements, and where do you assess Zimbabwe in as far as providing opportunities for women in this country?
The Zimbabwe Constitution is clear. So that was very evident, that this is a country that has a commitment to the empowerment and rights of women and to gender parity in the Constitution. We're also able to listen, to see, to receive commitments around sectoral issues, whether this is about the child marriage law, or is the commitment of the country, the compact on ending violence against women, or the efforts that are there on the economic empowerment front, including the Women's Bank. So in terms of the policy work, the legal work, we could see that there is significant effort that is there in the country, even if there are still some areas that needs to be addressed in terms of the policy, in terms of the implementation, but the political will in terms of legislation is there. And at the same time, it was also very encouraging to see some of the areas where law is being discussed. The Gender Equality Bill was one of them. the discussions around proportional representation is very important, because we're also talking about the participation of women in decision making. We're talking about the implementation of the 2013 Constitution. So to see an effort in the country to have laws that address these issues was very important for us. It was good to meet women in decision making, but it was not sufficient, because we could see that the country has not reached the gender parity principles, the commitment that is there in the SDGs. We still need to look for more women in decision making.
Right. You mentioned the aspect of there being the will, the political will, the policy framework that is actually in place. But you still indicate that there's a gap between the political will vis-a-vis what's being implemented on the ground. The big question is, what are those areas and how can Zimbabwe bridge that particular gap?
I think the first is household poverty. The issue of poverty is linked to the economic empowerment and the well-being of a family, of society. So implementation of the commitments that are there around economic empowerment is very important. Land rights, supporting women in small and medium enterprises, women's effective participation in the macroeconomy of the country, including in big sectors like mining, construction, transport. This is very important, and we're still encouraged to see the possibility that is there if some of the initiatives like the Epworth market can be scaled up, which UN Women was also responsible for contributing, to see local authorities providing land, a private public sector, UN engagement. Another area that still is very hard is that we still have high prevalence of violence against women. So we have enough laws, we have good laws, but we don't have sufficient implementation. We still need more prevention, and more importantly, access to justice. When we visited the victim-friendly court at Harare Magistrates Court, we really appreciate the leadership of some of the key people. Mr. Mtema, we met with Senior Regional Magistrate Mtombeni, and we also saw the work that is happening. But we can see that we need more support across range of courts to have those victim-friendly courts, and we also need to continue to insist that violence against women and gender-based violence is a crime. What you are calling child rape is actually rape. Child marriage is actually rape. When we talk about having sex with a minor, we are talking about rape. Right. So there is still a lot of work that needs to be happening around prevention, support to survivors, access to justice. We're very encouraged by the discussion around digitalization of access to justice. And so we really welcome the efficiency issues on using technology, but equally seeing that technology and connectivity is not in every part of the world and not of the country. Not everybody has a gadget. So the hybrid approach still needs to be there in order to facilitate access to justice.
Right. One of the issues also that have been a concern, not just in Zimbabwe, but even at a continental landscape, is the aspect of funding for women in business. What are some of the global shifts that are taking place within that dimension, and how can Zimbabwe strategically position itself to ensure that the women here get access to funding for their projects and for their business endeavors?
I think the first thing is to always look at the whole financing architecture for development and for business. And indeed, we need gender-responsive budgeting to also look at the economic sectors so that there is prioritization within the resources the country has. We also need, in the whole discussion on domestic financing, to say what are the tools that could be there, blended financing that enables us to leverage the funding in the public sector, the funding in the resources, capital in the private sector, also grants and other instruments that could be there from the development partners, including the UN. Some instruments that have been there in other countries, like the gender bonds, are very interesting to explore. Possibly the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange and other partners with UN Women Advice can build on this. At the end of the day, it's about capital, it's about assets, it's about skills, it's about incubation, but it's about opportunities. And therefore, some of the opportunities that exist is also gender-responsive procurement. Buy from women. Recognize the skills that they have. so that the possibilities and some of the barriers that are there can actually be addressed. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area and the approaches that are there for regional trade, many grew up having to have their parents buying and selling from within the SADC region. How can we move a little bit more in supporting the economy in the region in a way that scales up the possibilities for business and entrepreneurship in the region, so that we are able to scale up some of the innovations and activities coming out of the SMEs? I was very excited to visit the program that UN Women has with Econet Wireless and OmniContact, which is looking at how do we do digital, how do we use digital to ignite opportunities and potential in the country for 100,000 women and girls in the next 5 years. And I think we can actually reach 1,000 people and really have many more partners come into the ecosystem of this work. And I'm glad that this is an initiative with government, with the UN, with the private sector. But we need more donors, more partners, and definitely this.
The continent of Africa is dominated, of course, by young people. Now, the question then becomes, how do we ensure that how do we guarantee the emancipation of women, young women and girls within the frame of the African context?
When we talk about African young people, most people start from the lack of skills, the poverty, but we also have amazing, extraordinary innovators, creators, people who are running their own businesses, who are initiating in their own villages, resource initiatives by young people. That's the first. Secondly, remove the barriers that limit the potential of young people.
Barriers?
Those barriers include education, skills, jobs. Young people need jobs in order to then build on that. So we need an environment that creates for young women, so that young women are not dependent on a blesser. Ordinary women in this country, like the founder of Securico, Divine Lukula, who I'll be meeting, and say, when women have an opportunity, when girls have an opportunity, they can scale to the greatest potential. But we must really address the sexual violence against girls, the sexual exploitation. Girls should not marry in order to get out of poverty. Marriage should be out of love when somebody is at age. So these are some of the critical barriers that we face. And for Zimbabwe, I really appreciate that there's a strong effort to deal with drugs. We need to address the issue of drugs a little bit more, and including among the girls. I also know organizations which have very great initiatives, including the organization I founded before joining the UN at Rosaria Memorial Trust. I love the girls' soccer initiatives that are there in the country. We need innovation. We need not just use the traditional ways of engaging, but ultimately, it's about education. It's about education and jobs, and the social support system within the family.
Right. As we near a wrap up, as Zimbabwe and the region work toward the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, what message would you leave with women and girls about UN Women's long-term commitment as well as the path ahead?
UN Women believes that every country, including Zimbabwe, has a potential because countries like Zimbabwe, just like any other African countries, it's a rich country. It's rich. Africa is rich.
Right.
From Cape to Cairo. What is needed is a shift of mindset, from the mindset of we are poor to a mindset of we have resources and we can leverage the resources of the country to prioritize and invest differently. Prioritize basic services, prioritize ending household poverty, prioritize so that our kids are in school, to make sure that the local police station is functioning, that there is food security at the household level, that our young people have jobs. if we prioritize that, also critically needed for Africa and other countries is peace. If a country does not have peace, if we have tensions in our countries, we spend time addressing those issues when people should spend that time in a productive way. At times when I look at the pain of Africa, is we busy fighting each other when the resources are going. We're busy fighting each other when we should be busy manufacturing, when we should do energy, to maximizing on its capabilities, on its potentials, on its resources, and plug some of the leakages that we have in the economies in Africa. The Mbeki report years back talked about the massive illicit financial flows out of Africa. So we need to address some of these leakages so that the funds that are saved can provide and facilitate a school that has a happy teacher, that has the books, that have a library, that have a computer. Because in some of our countries, kids are learning computer training when they actually don't have the computer. It's theory. And so that's our vision as UN Women, as the United Nations, is really to say another world of development is possible. A world of opportunities for all is possible. A world in which women and girls are empowered, are respected, live with the dignity like any other is possible. A world in which the young boys and the girls can do shoulder high when they meet with their counterparts from other parts of the world is possible. That they can be competitive and that we can live a life free of violence and free of poverty.
Dr. Nyaradzai Gombonjanda, UN Assistant Secretary General and Deputy Director of UN Women. Ma'am, thank you.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Thank you for having us.
Well, of course, that's a wrap on this exclusive conversation with, of course, the United Nations, giving you what to expect from this point from the United Nations as well as from UN Women. I'm Eben Mabunda, the money man. Let them do what they do. When we do what we do, we mean business. Thank you for watching and have a good day.
Welcome back, gospel music lovers, to another season of My Ultimate Gospel 10. Your ultimate destination for soul-stirring melodies and inspirational stories.
Didn't graduate. I guess I blew it.
You couldn't advise him anything. He would just look at you and say, so who do you think you are?
We were just like really spoiled.
And then they just give me the receipt and I'd pay.
That guy walks in one day and then he says that he wants to make a movie.
He was blowing the money.
There was just like this habit that he had where as soon as he got money, it was gone.
I just didn't have the skills or the experience.
This money, I could see it disappear so fast.
Harare. Tune into the beat.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, your source for news, business, sports, fashion, and more.
Experience the pulse of Harare's culture and lifestyle.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, Harare's top radio station.
Join the conversation with Zimbabwe's top personalities.
Subscribe now for fresh and infotainment content daily.
Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's heartbeat.
Catch exclusive interviews every weekday for candid, exciting, and thought-provoking conversations with your host, Erika Ndoro.
We talk about arts, we can talk about sports, we can even talk about politics, and sometimes we venture into a nice guitaristic play.
It The one story where you can't get out of your head. Karowa mwana mnemambama mu studio. Wakatarisa munhu so Erica like where you are sitting. Ndozongokona bata face so pasina munhu.
Wakasiya music yako iyo afro chakuti ndo music manje no Zimbabwe.
And I'm sure they're still saying the same thing now.
Yeah, so
Shona kana kuti Chindevere kana mumwe mutaure muno muZimbabwe ndiwe iwewe. Ndiwo rupawo rwako. Ndicho chidadiso chako.
Catch me, Erica Ndoro, right here on ZTN Prime every single Monday at 7 p.m. whilst we get exclusive.
They call me Racer X, or in this case, Racer J. All right.
Put your seatbelt on.
Dental checkups, experiments, games.
The mixture is making bubbles and the bubbles have changed color. Our balloon has been filled by carbon dioxide.
We have it all right here on Happy Sprouts. Catch us exclusively on ZTN Prime, DSTV channel 294.